Good afternoon and welcome to the week 6 lecture video. Let's go ahead and take a look at the agenda for today. Okay, cool. So again, this course is taking a three-pronged approach to teaching you research methods. Okay, the first prong is teaching you research methods theory, and this occurs by you reading the textbook and taking the quizzes. Okay. And then, of course, during these lecture videos, the weeks that you take a quiz, I review the quiz answers and I clarify things and point out things that I think are very important. So that's prong one, theory. Prong two is SPSS. Okay, so you all have been working on the SPSS assignments. You're not actually pressing the buttons to get the output. Okay, but you're watching my lecture videos from data analysis to kind of refresh your memory regarding SPSS and statistics. And if you haven't taken a class with SPSS yet, it's the same exact thing as doing stats by hand, but the main focus here is for you to remember the interpretations, okay, of the statistics, because you're going to need to remember how to interpret these statistics for the results section of your paper. And again, when we get there, and we're not there yet, I'm going to run the analyses to assess your hypotheses. And I'm going to send you that SPSS output. And then my goal for you is to be able to interpret the output. And of course, I'm always here to help. Okay, so you can send me emails, you can show up to office hours, and if you're stuck or have questions, I can walk you through. And again, whatever you submit for your results rough draft, I'm going to give you an ample amount of feedback that will allow you to correct your interpretations if they're not where they should be. Okay, so there's a lot of feedback mechanisms built into this course to make the process of writing the research paper a lot easier than it normally would be. And that's what I'm bringing to this class, that experience that I've had, and again, to help you be successful in this process. Prong three is actually writing the research paper. And as you know by now, all these video lectures pretty much have to do with writing the research paper. Okay, all the discussion forums get you to do a little bit of that research paper writing every single week. And the rough draft assignments give me an opportunity to give you very specific feedback, which takes a long time, but it's definitely worthwhile for your growth in research methods. Okay. So SPSS lecture 3 notes. As always, go ahead and email me if you have any questions. There's nothing specific I want to cover regarding those notes. Okay, so just email me if you have any questions or show up to office hours. Let's go ahead and take a look at the week 5 discussion. So in the week 5 discussion, you're asked to write an APA style reference, okay, for that article that you found. Okay. And then you were asked to add in-text citations to that article summary that you did in the week 4 discussion post. And of course, every week we're trying to revise if it's necessary. So maybe you revised your article summary a little bit, you added the in-text citations, which are necessary, and you included the APA reference. And that's all you had to do. And again, part 2 just gives you all an opportunity to really work together and review each other's work. It's called peer review. And this is really important in the research process, okay? As a researcher, I'm not a researcher by myself, okay? I work with a team, okay? And that's really what I'm trying to model here. The research process is a process where a lot of different people are involved, giving feedback, trying to help the quality of the product. So you get your peer feedback, and then of course on the rough drafts you get my feedback. Okay, so the first round of feedback I gave you was related to your hypotheses. So everyone received 3 approved hypotheses, and some of you have emailed me as you were supposed to, if you wanted to change them, and I've approved those hypotheses that I was emailed. So I think at this point, everyone has 3 stable hypotheses that are not going to change for the rest of the course. But that being said, if you still need to change your hypotheses for whatever reason, or one hypothesis out of your hypotheses, go ahead and shoot me an email or drop by office hours and I can approve those. So last Sunday, you completed the article summary rough draft, where you were supposed to find 2 more articles related to your hypotheses, okay, and summarize them. So the article summary rough draft should have been 3 article summaries. Okay. So this week, I'm going to review those article summary rough drafts, and I'm going to give you feedback. My goal is Sunday by 11:59 p.m., but I hope to finish it sooner. Okay. And these feedbacks will be assignment comments. I'm literally going to go into the assignment like I'm grading it, and I'll leave you comments there. Okay. And I'll email you when I'm done. And if for some reason you cannot find them, again, I'm here for your success. Just reach out to me via email or office hours that I have every week, and we can figure it out. Okay, so what's the lecture today? So we're just focusing on the first part of the introduction section. So the introduction section is the first part of your paper, the first part of any research paper. The introduction is broken up into 3 parts. Okay, today we're going to talk about part 1, introducing your topic. Okay, in part 1, you're going to talk about your main variable of interest. And what do I mean when I say main variable of interest? Well, what variable is in each of your hypotheses? For a lot of you, it's support for same-sex marriage. Okay, so that would be your main variable of interest that you would have to talk about. I think for some others, it's self-esteem. Whatever variables in all of your hypotheses, that's your main variable of interest. And that is the subject of the first part of your introduction section. So you're going to talk about it. You're going to introduce the topic. Okay. And this could include information from the papers that you're reviewing. Because again, all these papers are following APA style. So they probably have some really good information in their first part of their introduction section, or their introduction section in general, that you can tie in to the first part of your introduction section. But again, make sure you include in-text citations. And whatever you say, you need to include some in-text citations, so there's some support for what you're talking about. So literally, you're introducing that main variable of interest, and then that's probably about a page long. And at the end of the first part of your introduction section, you're going to add an objective statement. Okay. So for example, if your hypotheses have to do with gender and support for same-sex marriage, race and support for same-sex marriage, self-esteem and support for same-sex marriage, your objective statement would include that. So after you introduce the topic of support for same-sex marriage, you would say, the purpose of this study is to examine the relationship between gender and same-sex marriage, race and same-sex marriage, self-esteem and same-sex marriage. Stop. You're done. Okay. So that's the first part of your introduction section. The second part of your introduction section is related to your article summaries. Okay. In the second part of your introduction section, which we'll talk about next week, you're literally taking your article summaries. So far, you should have 3. Okay. By the time you turn in your final paper, you're required to have 10 article summaries. You're literally taking these 10 article summaries and you're sticking them in word for word into the second part of the introduction section. And then in the third part of your introduction section, which we'll get into, I believe, in a couple weeks, you're going to summarize the main findings. from your literature review, and then state the 3 hypotheses that I approved a couple weeks ago. Okay. So that being said, let me show you a really important research. Okay. So if you go to files, week 6, right? Because that's where we are. Research paper overview. This is a great resource for you. It is a template for you. And I've included it as a PDF file and as a .doc file. So let's take a look at it. Let me share this file with you. Okay. Your final research paper is going to include a title page. Okay, this is page 1. And this is exactly how it has to look. You're going to have your title. You're going to put your name, Department of Psychology, San Bernardino Valley College, Psychology 201 research methods, my name and the date. So you can go ahead and make this title page right now. The abstract, we're going to talk about close to the end of the class. It's just summarizing the entire paper. So it just makes sense to do this when the entire paper is written. But here is where we are. The first part of your introduction section. So in the first part of your introduction section, you need to add a title. Okay. And your title could be, in the example that I gave, your title could be as something like the relationship between gender, race, self-esteem, and support for same-sex marriage. Something like that. You can probably come up with something better than that. But this is where your title goes in the first part of your introduction section. So that's step 1. You could also include a quote. Now, the quote is optional, but sometimes a quote can be very powerful. Okay. So again, first part of your introduction section, you need a title. And again, just throw something together. You can always change it at the end. Okay. You can add a quote, optional though. And then here's the first part that I was talking about. So in this paper example that's provided here, my main variable of interest was something called self-handicapping. Okay, yours may be support for same-sex marriage. It may be self-esteem. But again, it's whatever variable is in each of your hypotheses. So in this section, what are you trying to do? In this section, you're just trying to define the variable of interest and include in-text citations, right? Because you're not making this up. This is information likely that you're finding from the articles that you're summarizing. But you're just, for the reader, you're making it clear what this thing called self-esteem is, or what this thing called self-handicapping is, what this thing called support for same-sex marriage is all about. And again, this should be about a page long. And then at the end of this section, you're going to have your statement of purpose. So in our example, we would say, the purpose of this study is to examine the relationship between gender and support for same-sex marriage, race and support for same-sex marriage, self-esteem and support for same-sex marriage. Okay, and that sets the reader up. Okay, you define the concept, so it's really clear. Oh, okay, this is really what this paper is about: support for same-sex marriage, or self-handicapping, or self-esteem. And here's what I can expect. And then part 2 of the introduction: what's previously said about this topic. Okay, specifically following our example, our article summaries would be gender and support for same-sex marriage. So we would find some articles that talk about that. Race and support for same-sex marriage, we'd find some articles that talk about that. Self-esteem and support for same-sex marriage, we'd find some articles that talk about that. And that's part 2, and we'll talk about that next week. But once again, part 1 of your introduction section, boom, you come up with your title, optional quote, define your main variable of interest, and that's the variable that's in each of your hypotheses, and then throw in that purpose statement. Okay. And that purpose statement is aligned directly with your hypotheses. It's not your hypotheses, right? Because your hypotheses include specific predictions. Okay. But it's just telling them the purpose of this study is to examine the relationship between gender, support for same-sex marriage, race and support for same-sex marriage, self-esteem and support for same-sex marriage. Okay. So you could browse this paper. You can browse this paper to see how in-text citations are done. You know, here's a, well, hold on. You know, you see a bunch of in-text citations here, so you can do that. This paper is just going to be super useful as you're putting together your paper. And I've updated it so it's compliant with APA 7th edition. Okay, and here's all your references. Okay, so, you know, it's a good tool. And once again, let me share with you where it's located. We're on week 6. And again, I'm just releasing material as we get there. I don't want to overwhelm you with extra stuff. Okay, it helps keep us organized. So week 6, research paper overview. You have it in a doc file as well as a PDF, whatever you need to use. Okay. So that's the first part of your introduction. So we're kind of getting into the paper now. Now the following assignments are due Sunday by 11:59, your week 6 discussion. So let's take a look at that. Okay. The week 6 discussion, part 1, write your revised hypotheses. You should just have 3, no more, no less. And again, I'm just having you redo this just so you don't forget your hypotheses. Part 1 is whatever I approved, you're just copying and pasting it here because I don't want you to forget those are your hypotheses. And it's good for other people to know as well. Okay. Part 2, this is where you write the first part of your introduction section. Write an opening paragraph to your introduction, introduce your topic, include a purpose statement, right, which we talked about for your study at the end of this paragraph. Okay, we talked about including the title, a relevant quote. It's optional. If you don't force it, okay? And then again, the main point of this is to define your main variable of interest, that variable that's in each and every one of your hypotheses from here. Discuss the importance of this construct. So a construct's another name for your main variable of interest. State the objective of your study at the end of this section, right? So we talked about all that. Part 3, respond to 2 other students as always. And again, it's going to be really easy here to get 200 words. So make sure it's not shorter. Respond to 2 other students. Compare what they wrote to what you learned in the week 6 lecture video. Okay. Also, please let them know if something is unclear and if possible, suggest a correction. Okay. And again, each of your responses need to be a minimum of 100 words. Okay. If you're doing this in Word, you can easily get a word count. I'm assuming it's the same for Google Docs or Sheets if you're on a Mac. I'm not entirely sure, but just make sure there's some substance here. And again, what's one thing you could do? Look at their hypotheses. Okay. Are they actually talking about their main variable of interest, meaning the variable that's in each of their hypotheses? So is self-esteem in each of their hypotheses, is support for same-sex marriage in each of their hypotheses. So you could check them on that and let them know if they're violating that rule. Also, maybe you like their title. Maybe you can think of a better title. Help them out. Does their quote work? Does it not work in your opinion? Okay. And again, remember, respectful, honest feedback will help us grow as researchers and critical thinkers. That's really the point here. Okay. Critical thinking being the purpose of college. Okay. So this is due Sunday by 11:59 p.m. And again, you know, I have that soft deadline of Thursday by 11:59 p.m. Again, it's a soft deadline. If you submit Friday or Saturday, obviously that's fine as long as you're submitting by Sunday. But the whole point of trying to get you all to submit as early as possible is to make sure that you have time to respond to people and people have time to respond to you. Okay. And again, the quiz 3 is due, covering topics 23 through 33. Okay, so that's all I have for this week. So go ahead and send me an email if you have any questions, and show up to office hours. And again, I will send you an email when office hours are occurring. But you know where they're when they're occurring, and it's posted on Canvas. So yeah. Anyway, I hope you all have a great week, and remember, I'm here for your success. So don't be afraid to reach out if you need anything. Take care. Bye.